All right, and we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the fourth part of the show now, we are going to talk about the Lions and their Super Bowl window. Has it closed? Has it? And my answer to that is I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no because I still think they have the talent on this team. And Dan Campbell talked about it too. They still have the culture. The culture is there as well. The problem is you're losing your coordinators. You're losing Aaron Glenn and you're losing Ben Johnson. So how is this offense going to look next year without Ben Johnson calling plays? Now, the Lions also dealt with a lot of injuries this year, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. They lost one of the best defensive players in football in Aiden Hutchinson, so you're going to get him back next year. And, if they made it all the way to the Super Bowl, it's possible that he would have even played in the game, but I guess we'll never know. But, you got to get healthy. And, let's see who they replace. Ben Johnson and probably Aaron Glenn will be taking a job elsewhere. We'll see who they end up replacing them with. But they still have a lot of talent on this team. Like I said, Aiden Hutchinson, you're getting him back next year. You look on the offensive side of the ball. You got one of the best receivers in the NFL in AmonRaSt.Brown. You got one of the better tight ends in the league in Sam Laporta. Jameson Williams took big strides this year. You got arguably the best backfield in the NFL in Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. You got a solid offensive line. And you got a pretty good quarterback in Jared Goff, who people are not happy with right now because of how he played. Now, he was probably playing concussed because he got hurt on that pick six. He was taken out of the game for a little bit. He was playing concussed. And people look at Jared Goff and say, in the big games, he doesn't show up. Now, I think, when you look at some of the games that the Rams have lost, or the Rams, well, yeah, even going back to the Rams, when they made the playoffs, and then you look at the Lions. I mean, last year, the Lions, they were up 24-7 on the 49ers. They should have won that game. Turnovers and, over aggressiveness led to them losing that game. So they could have been playing in the Super Bowl last year. But I don't think it was Jared Goff's fault that they lost the game. I think there was other factors. I mean, it's a team sport. It's more than just one guy. But I wouldn't say Jared Goff is the main reason why they lost last year in the championship game. I will say, if you look at Jared Goff's playoff losses over the course of his career, I mean, 2017 was the first year that he made the playoffs with the Rams, and the Falcons won that. I mean, I don't think he played great in that game. So, but I think it was more than just him. 2018, the Super Bowl against the Patriots, he was not good at all. He wasn't. And I think the moment was a little too big for him during that Super Bowl. So, you could put the blame on him. You can also take a look at, I forgot about the COVID season. They played, the Packers in the second round. He was kind of playing hurt in that game because I think he was dealing with I think it was a thumb issue. But he wasn't great in that. But also people say Jared Goff does not play well in cold weather. I get it. And then, he comes to the Lions and, they make the playoffs last year. Like I said, the championship game, I don't fault him. But you got to fault him in this past game against the Commanders. But, he's possibly playing with a concussion. Once he got knocked down, it's just something was off. He underthrew that ball to Jameson Williams in the end zone. That got picked off. And then, you had another interception towards the end of the game. I mean, turnovers were an issue for the Lions. And I don't think they should be running an end around with Jameson Williams and him throwing a pass when you're down, and especially when your defense just cannot get off the field. But look, Jared Goff, he's one of the reasons why the Lions were in the position that they were in. And he's been great for the team. The fans embraced him. And what, they just going to turn their backs on him now because he had a bad game? No, I don't think they should. I think on paper this team is still really good, but you got to pick up the pieces, you got to replace some parts, and go at it again. But a lot of the talent on this team is not going anywhere. So I still think that they could do it, but they're not going to have as easy of a path as maybe they would have had this year. And even this year, the path wasn't going to be a cakewalk. Because, look at the team that just beat you. The Commanders, they're not going anywhere. The Eagles are not going anywhere. Look at the teams in your own division. I mean, we'll see what the Vikings end up doing with Sam Darnold, if they're going to bring him back or not. I mean, the Lions beat them twice this year. They beat them twice this year. They beat the Packers twice this year. They beat the Bears twice this year. But the Bears are going to be better because now the Bears just took one of your valuable assets in Ben Johnson, and now he's going to be the head coach. So you're going to have to see Ben Johnson twice a year. The Packers, how are they going to come out next year? The Lions swept them, but, the Packers, they could come out next year. They could be a better team next year if they make the right moves. If they bring in some wide receiver help, Jordan Love stays healthy next year. And then, the Vikings, the first game, that game, it came down to a game-winning field goal. The second game, I mean, the Lions dominated. But, the Vikings aren't going anywhere either. So, you're in a tough division. But I still think, going into next year, they're still going to be one of the best teams in the NFC and in the NFL. But now it's just about taking that next step. Once you get to the postseason, can you break through and, get to a Super Bowl? And also, I mean, look at the NFC West too. I mean, we'll see what happens with the Rams, but if everybody comes back, they're going to be there. I think the 49ers will have a bounce back year next year. Teams are going to be better next year. Dallas will be better next year, I think, with everybody healthy, and we'll see who they bring in as a head coach. It might be Kellen Moore. That's what I would get. That's what my guess would be right now is Kellen Moore. But the path is going to be tougher. But I think they can handle it. I really do. But it's just another tough year, And you thought after last year they were going to take that next step and get to the Super Bowl. I mean, I did. I had them in the Super Bowl. And when they finished as a number 1 seed, they had 15 wins. I'm like, yeah, I mean, they could do it. I didn't expect them to lose the Commanders. But you saw a lot in that game. The injuries finally caught up to them. And, it's just, maybe they weren't prepared. People are talking about the lack of preparation for this game as maybe being a reason why they lost. It's possible. I mean, I've definitely seen teams, not show up for games. I mean, go back to the Steelers and the Jaguars all those years ago. It feels like that. I mean, they let Blake Bortles and that offense go up and down the field on them. And the final score of that game was 45-42. The Steelers thought that they were just going to win that game. Certain players did. And they didn't. Now, I think this Commanders team, now I do think the Jaguars defense that year is better than this current iteration of the Commanders defense. But I would say that the Commanders offense with Jaden Daniels is better than the Jaguars defense with Blake Bortles. Absolutely. I mean, I don't think it's really that bold to say. But this Commanders team that they just lost to is a good team. And I did say, going into the playoffs, I thought any team in the NFC could make a run. I really did believe that. Because that's just how good the NFC is this year. Or was this year. And it just so happens that you got the Commanders making a run. And what's interesting is, what would have happened if Baker Mayfield didn't fumble that ball? Would the Commanders have still won? We'll never know. But they're a team that has played clean football. The Lions just didn't. And it's going to be a long offseason for them. Some people are talking about that Jahmyr Gibbs should have had more touches because the run defense for the Commanders is not very good. Well, the other thing, too, is you're playing from behind. The turning point of the game, really, was that pick six. Once that happened, I was like, yeah, this is not looking good for the Lions. They might not win this game. Because we saw earlier this year where they had to play from behind against, the Bills. They had to play from behind. I'm trying to think of who else. Well, look, they didn't even lose that many games. They lost. Well, when they were playing from behind against the Bills, and then their only other loss against the Buccaneers, but that was 20-16. Yeah, really the Bills game. Yeah, I guess that's the only example. Because the Bills with Josh Allen, they're going to move the ball against a banged up defense. And it's just when the Lions fell behind in that game, I just didn't think, the Lions, it was too much for the Lions to overcome. And it kind of played out similar with this game because the Commanders they didn't punt. They did not punt. They punted once in the second half. In the entire game, they punted once, and it was in the second half. The Lions were not stopping them. And the Commanders kept going for it on fourth down, and they were converting. And it's just turnovers were kind of the difference. Because that pick six doesn't happen, if Jared Goff doesn't throw a pick towards the end of the first half, that's 7 less points for the Commanders. That's at least 3 more points for you. Who knows? But, it is what it is. I don't believe that the window is closed. I don't think it's as open as it once was, but it definitely is still open. I do think the Lions, they'll still be a very good team next year, and we'll see what they can do. We'll see how they bounce back. But let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think that the Lions Super Bowl window is closed? Let me know in the comments. So we're going to take our final break of the show now. When we come back, we will talk about my rankings of the final 4 teams in the NFL playoffs. So for one final time today, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.